Welcome to House of Agents. And now, here's your hosts, Tessa and Ramon.
Welcome back to the House of Agents podcast. Today we have an exciting topic for you guys. As always, I guess they all are exciting, but I'll be the first to admit we did go ahead and try and record this one time before. And as some podcast newbies, the sound was a little low. So we're going to go ahead, well, among other things, we're going to go ahead and retry this. But today I want you guys to get to know the one and only Ramon a little bit better. It is first and foremost, it's pronounced Ramon. For everybody that gets that wrong, which is very common, it is Ramon. So, Ramon, we're going to go ahead and interview you today so that people get to know a little bit more about kind of what got you to where you are now and where you see yourself heading. So, I think the best way to kind of kick it off is if you would just give us the short version, the abridged version of how you got into real estate and kind of what made you start that journey.
Okay, that's going to be hard. I will do my best to give the short and sweet. But long story short, keyword on short, back in 1993, no, I'm just kidding. My dad was a contractor. He's started off as running framing crews in California, then started building custom homes. So I grew up where my dad was a business owner and would build custom homes. So I wouldn't say I was ever plan to be a real estate agent, but I learned a lot about real estate just by having a dad who was kind of in the industry. And I knew I wanted to, as I got into college, I knew I wanted to work in real estate, and my first thought was honestly corporate real estate. So I worked for a real estate investment trust, publicly traded company called Camden Property Trust. Great experience, but I got my first taste of the real 9-to-5, post-grad, post-college, this is what you're doing now for your career, and it just was not nearly exciting enough for me. And to be honest, I was like, all right, this salary ain't gonna work. This amount of money is not gonna work for me. And so I came back to Albuquerque, and it's actually my dad, funny enough, who mentioned, hey, I think you should get your real estate license. I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't really know how it worked. I mean, honestly, when I say this, I mean in all sincerity, I didn't understand the signs or what an open house was. I think I understood the concept, but I didn't understand the different brokerages, how you get people to. I was completely new to the industry, and but he told me about an agent who actually is my friend to this day, but he had paid out $25,000 commission check to, and it was because they brought a client that wanted to build a custom home, and they paid them a percentage of the total home cost. Very common, but yeah, 25 grand. I was he's telling me the story. It's 25 what? And you got to remember at the time, this is, I'm in college or finishing up college, an average of, if I had $200 in my account, I was feeling really confident about my financial situation. And so $25,000 seemed like this astronomical amount of money. And that's really what honestly piqued my interest. And I'm like, all right, maybe I'll look into this real estate thing a little bit more. And didn't have any money, of course. So went and worked in explosive demolition for about almost 6 months. That was fun. Earned enough money with hazard pay and overtime and travel and all that. It was a traveling explosives team. So that was a phenomenal experience to go blow stuff up and see what that was all about. And then, I got my real estate license, and I guess kind of never looked back after that.
Okay, so now that was a pretty good job of keeping
it short, right?
Short and sweet. That was definitely good. I've heard the long version, the short version, and every version in between. So that was pretty good.
Thank you.
So now you find yourself in real estate after how many years?
Well, I actually got licensed in 2016, and my first full year after college was 2016.
Okay, so how many years is that?
I'm in sales, not math.
Okay, I couldn't.
No, I'm just kidding. 4 plus 2, 6.
Okay.
Going into my 6th year.
Okay, so you're a 6-year veteran, and of course, we always hear that statistic, right? That within 5 years, I believe it's 87%. I actually was just looking at this yesterday.
Yeah.
The 87% of real estate agents are no longer going to be in business,
which is crazy.
I would almost argue that it happens much faster than that. I think most people won't give it 5 years.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think that 5 is actually, I was like, wow, that's actually a lot.
It's generous.
But if you think about it, that's such a crazy statistic because if you think about it, just staying in the business for 5 years is a strategic advantage.
Exactly.
Because all those clients, like all those people that would use somebody, they're all free game now.
Yeah. And I think the reason that a lot of agents fail out of the industry before they get to that, 5-year mark or even the 3-year mark is because when we go to real estate school, we're taught all of the real estate law, but we're not really taught much around what to actually do, how to generate leads, how to close a deal. So I want to know from your perspective as a newer agent, what would be the 3 most important things that you could do in your first 1 to 3 years of business that would give you a significant advantage and put you in a better position to not be a part of that statistic?
Can I tell a quick story? It'll be fast.
I have a feeling you would tell it even if I said no. So go ahead.
It's a good story, but it directly relates to why I believe so much in teams. And just a quick example about teams is that I think that when you take 2 people's resources, an agent and a team, and you combine them, you create a bigger opportunity, but you create it faster. And I think there's a learning curve that you're going to go through regardless. But the shorter you can make that learning curve, in my opinion, the faster you can excel your business. And funny enough, that's would be my number one. Where I'd say join a team. Mm-hmm. If you're a new agent in the industry. When I was getting started, I actually started off as an independent agent with Remax. And I always as I'm a little older and seasoned, I don't try to every experience taught me something. That experience had its positives, but it also had some negatives, the way it ended and some other things. But I was really kind of struggling at that time. Like my broker was a broker. He wasn't really like a sales guy. Like he wasn't really putting out big numbers in production. So I was very much wondering, what do I do? I don't have any money coming in. I'm pretty much broke at this point. Ran through all my savings. And I had a buddy who was working with a top team in Albuquerque. And we were in a continuing education class together, and I would watch him, and he had this, I remember this day, he had this little not a briefcase, what's the one that goes over your shoulder? It's kind of like a briefcase, but it's more
like a
flimsy.
Satchel.
Yeah, a satchel. Yeah, I don't know, it wasn't a satchel. It was what they call those Merces. It was a Merce, but he had files in it, and all those files had the name of the client. They were blue. I remember this day. And he was telling me, these are the pending transactions. These are all the pre-qualified buyers I'm working with. And this dude was on his phone constantly. He was stepping out and he's like, oh, I have this going on. And I'm sitting there lucky to get an email today. An email that would I would be lucky to show a house this week. I'd be pumped.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm missing something. And then when we got together and we started hey, maybe we should do something together, right? Do our own thing, which we ended up doing. I remember we first started cold calling together and kind of just hanging around more. I was like, wow, this guy has the lingo down. He is so much further than I was in my ability to build rapport, to sell. I was good naturally at it, but I wasn't good in the terms of providing real estate service with clients. And so long story short, that stood out to me. Even to this day, I remember being wow, I am for sure behind and missing out and not going as fast as I could be. So that would be number one, was to be really seriously consider joining a team. I think that would be a huge advantage. I would say the other one, and I know you are definitely have done your fair share and are continuing to, is go to events and network. I mean, I can't tell you, I learned so much from those Inman events. Mm-hmm. I learned so much from paying the extra, whatever it was on someone's course. Even if I just took a couple things away from it, it was an event that our association was holding, I would go, it didn't matter what it was. I would say get really aggressive with attending events and just being around the industry. And then I would say the third thing, which is going to be super weird for me to ever say, is just have patience. Now, patience doesn't mean sit back and wait. That's not what patient means. But patience means that as you're building your business, as you're building your referral network, which really is the people that will go out into the world and say, hey, you should use this person for this service. You're building a practice and it takes time. Your dentist got their, I don't even know what's called, boards, or they passed their, all their stuff for school and licenses. They open up shop. That doesn't mean all of a sudden they have a massive business. There's really good lawyers and there's really bad lawyers. There's lawyers who make a shit ton of money and there's lawyers who can barely, make ends meet. So just because you get a licensed CPA, right, financial advisor, dentist, doctor, it's all the same concept when you really think about it. And so have patience and focus on the fundamentals of your business, and like, don't get too ahead of yourself. A mistake I made countless times was buying systems and buying technology that I was like not even remotely in the right headspace or caliber of business to be using. So yeah, those are my 3. Join a team, or at least seriously consider it. Go to as many educational events as you possibly can. Best investments in your own education when you're starting. And then I would say the third one is have patience.
Okay, so I want to dissect those 3 things a little bit. And I do think it's really interesting that you just used the comparison, first of all, of like a doctor or lawyer, those kind of things, because in all of those cases, after you finish up the schooling piece of it, you are always going to be some degree of a junior associate or, work at a practice. You never just go out and open up your own new practice from day one. And it's so funny because real estate for most people is their first ever encounter with being an entrepreneur. It's their first ever encounter of being their own business owner and operator. And essentially it is that you finish school and then you go and open up this whole big massive operation is how it feels without much guidance or information. And so I think it's important you pointed out joining the team, or at least considering to do so, because I would agree with you. I mean, you learn the most in those kind of environments, and ultimately for many people, they find that that's a place they want to remain because they get enough value, support, and accountability through that. But also at the very least, committing to that for a year, 2 years is going to set you up so significantly in the industry, because you've learned everything you do want to do and don't want to do, and you understand what kind of systems and investments are necessary and which ones you can, pass. And so I don't want this to just be a pitch fest for your own team, but of course that is a big piece of what you do now is you manage, run, and operate this big sales team across multiple different states. And I know, because I overhear them every day, that you're also having a lot of conversations with agents that are thinking about joining your team and kind of making that decision. So what are some things that if an agent is listening to this and maybe they've never considered the team route, but they're finding themselves struggling a little bit, what do you think are 3 of the biggest like value adds from your team specifically, or at least that someone should look for in a team?
Sure. Well, thank you, sweetheart, for the slow pitch, the soft pitch.
You're welcome.
So
Go get him, Tiger.
Yeah, thank you for setting that up for me. It's kind of a layup situation. Well, I think, let's start with like the biggest objection. The biggest objection on why someone wouldn't join a team is not always, but usually it's split. And I think that there's a very important equation that I'm going to just talk about real fast, that understanding this will help you make better business decisions as a real estate business owner. And there's only really one equation you need to know in order how to calibrate your business and identify opportunities, especially with teams when you're comparing. And that's your total GCI. So the total amount of money you bring in, that's before split, just straight up the money that came in from that deal. Then you have your gross profit, which is really minus your cost of goods sold. So your split would be a cost of goods sold. Transaction management fees, photography for the listings, the signage for the listings, install, deinstall, those would all be costs of goods sold. That gives you your gross profit. Then you have your fixed expenses, right? So if you're, paying for lead generation, if you have a CRM you use, if you're doing mailers, if you're, have you have a dialer, Vulcan 7 or whatever, all those things are your fixed expenses you're paying monthly. And then that gives you your net profit. And so from a team perspective, the reason why I think teams are so valuable is because not everyone has enough financial runway to make mistakes with their money. Like I would be the first to tell you, I ran out of money making mistakes. Like, all right, I'm out of money now. Like I had to get a $10,000 loan from my dad to get out of that situation. But when you factor it in, it's like, look, if you have an 80-20 split, let's just say, okay, and you sell a house for $10,000 commission check, not $10,000 house, but $10,000 commission check till GCI, right? And then you have an 80-20 split. So 20% goes to the brokerage and then you retain the other 80. Now, before we even get into the cost of goods sold, like it's just simple. Let's just say that, you spend, I don't know, $2,000 a month on just your fixed business expenses. I mean, that's a very low number. that's $24,000 in a year, right? So if you brought in $100,000 total commission, I'm just using 100 because it's easy to make to round. $100,000 minus your 80-20 split, you have 80% left over. Well, $2,000 a month times 12 months is $24,000. So then you have to subtract another $24,000. So off of $100,000, you're already at a 56-44, right? I think that's right. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it sounds great. Well, no, actually, to get this right, it's 20, then it's 24. So that'd be 46, right? 46.54.
Again, I'm not good.
I drank a Celsius before this, and now when your mind's going too fast and you're like, can't do the math. I'm just gonna do it real quick. So I want this to be. This is really a big learning lesson here.
Yeah. Well, and while you're doing that calculation over there, it is really important.
56. I was right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just want to clarify.
Okay. Well, good for you. I just want to clarify that this is like a very important concept. This is something that I've seen you teach multiple times now. I also redid your presentation because it was like chicken scratch. This is his thing that he'll like usually teach at an event or conference or something like that if you were to go and speak to a group or a team. And it's so valuable because it's a simple business concept, but so often no agent has ever been taught this. I know before I heard you talk about it, I had certainly never had that clear of a breakdown and explanation on how that's calculated. And it seems crazy, right?
Yep.
That's not a common thing that's taught and talked about within the industry, but it truly isn't. It's kind of just this crapshoot of like, go make money and hopefully you don't lose it all.
So exactly. And just to clarify the numbers, in that particular scenario, you're already at a 44% split. That's your true split. Now, again, that's even before we get into other expenses and like other costs of goods sold related to your transactions that your team would cover. So a lot of times we think we're at 80-20, but when you factor in what a team pays for and covers and their resources and their systems, which all would have to be replicated on your own, and you're going to pay for that and you're going to have to construct it. Why would you not just in this scenario, take a proven playbook, almost eliminate all of your fixed expenses out of your life, and your only difference is 6% in this equation. If my proposition's 50-50, you're already at a 44. I'm only asking for 6% more, and this is everything you get. So that's a very important thing to look at when identifying a team. Is number one, like, how is this financially beneficial? I think the other side of a team is, and at least, I don't know if you said my value proposition or not, but,
I'm curious.
But one of them is like straight up education. Because like there's some situations where an agent isn't, and you really want to, it's hard to trust the people when you're interviewing them because everyone says that they have the best team and all this stuff. But I've definitely told agents before, hey, honestly, I would just keep doing what you're doing. I don't really have, I don't think gels with what you're doing. But I would say the other side is it's taking the guesswork out of the equation. I think that what I run into with agents, which again, you said it earlier, I talked to, 2 new agents that are new to me almost a day, probably surpass 500 to 1,000 in a year that I meet new. And the 1 year it really goes all the way up to like 10. But let's just say just most common problem that I run into. There's really no correlation with how long they've been in the industry. Is that they get to a point where they are waking up every day unsure of what to do. They're not sure if they're getting the right education. They're not sure if they're getting the right training. They're listening to YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, their broker, and it's all kind of like conflicting info. And so what tends to happen is they don't actually go in any direction full force. So a lot of times they have a lot of pent up energy. Like, it's not like they're lazy. It's just when you have so much info and you don't know what direction to go, you almost, what is that word or a phrase, paralysis by analysis? I see that all the time. So when we provide an agent with, hey, here's our 90-day launch program. Well, part of our partnership is we have 180 other partners across the country that are running this same launch program for 90 days. It's hyper accountable. It's very clean, very systematic, and it's all statistically backed to prove a certain result. And so for the agent, the biggest value I can give them is say, hey, look, cut out all the noise. Do this, run this playbook. And usually it has to do with the fundamentals, which most agents, including myself, took a long time to figure out that you got to get those right in order to keep building.
Yeah. So I think to kind of summarize for people is first and foremost, like, there's a very easy way to determine if something is going to work or not work. And that starts with knowing your numbers, because you can really easily say, hey, this works for me. This doesn't work for me. This is going to set me up to actually make more money, or at least the money that I set out to make, or not. And the second one is that the resources, value, and support is genuinely there with like a proven system. So you think that those are the two most important things to look for, you know, for somebody joining a team or wanting to explore that option?
Yeah, I would say those are, because the reality is that there's no, I use this comparison a lot. And honestly, that's like the first thing I'll tell agents in our phone call. I want them to get a good feel for me. And I'm like, look, I just want to let you know there's no easy button in this business. I don't have it. If it's out there, I would already found it. It takes hard work. This is not easy to earn a living in this business. It's very doable and you can take it very far. But if you're looking for like some secret algorithm or lead generation thing, like that's somehow going to do the work for it, doesn't exist. And so that's number one. But number two is like, I think that when people dangle certain offers in front of you, what I just said is true. And I always sell with brutal honesty. That's just my style of how I convey things. But I see a lot of misconception around lead generation. I have agents that come to me and like, well, what leads do you provide? And, you know, we do all of those, everything above, right? We provide it to our agents. However, it's not to replace. Now I'm going to take a step back and like compare it to fitness. It's not to replace actually getting on the treadmill, doing sit-ups, doing the push-ups, doing the squats, all the basic things you learn, pull-ups. You start to learn how to stretch. Then you get a little bit more advanced, right? You do all the compound lifts and you start to get more advanced in your techniques and your forms and your rhythms and your cadences. You learn how to stretch, you learn how to eat right, hydrate, recover. Nothing will ever replace that. Like, and I think a lot of people think there's these diet pills out there that will somehow you'll take and just be in shape, which again, if those are out there, I'd for sure have them already, but they don't exist. And so the way I compare those two scenarios is leads are like supplements, right? You can't just take a supplement and solve your problem. That's never going to work. You have to dial in the fundamentals first. And then what we do is we add supplements on top of the fundamentals. So in a fitness situation, you start working out regularly for 90 days straight. This is comparison to our launch program. And you learn the fundamentals. You do the reps, you do the hard work, you break through those uncomfortable barriers of not physical pain in this scenario, but of just being uncomfortable. And what happens is you build the habits, which are now consistent. And then we add on to the fundamentals, we add on the supplements. So same thing working out, you work out for every day, 90 days straight. And now we start adding on the protein, the creatines, the pre-workouts, the, you know, whatever weight loss, testosterone, whatever you want to add, right? And that's how you equate peak performance. So I go back to the real estate example is you really have to focus on one before the other. And me saying, yeah, I have leads that are going to cost you X, Y, Z, and we provide them and it just comes to you. That's never gonna, if you want to truly be a self-sufficient and sustainable business in real estate, you'll never do it if you're counting on that from somebody else.
Yeah, I think that one piece of that is so important, and it works also in the fitness scenario that you're giving, is like the way to be the most successful and to raise your like standard of production and anything that you're doing is to elevate your defaults. I talk about this all the time. Like, what do you default to when shit hits the fan, when things aren't going right, when a deal fell through, or when, you know, you had a bunch of back-to-back holiday parties and you got off track with, you know, the goals that you were working towards physically, mentally, spiritually, in every single, you know, equity of life. There are these different things that we need to have a set cadence that we default to. And a lot of times for most people, that default is pretty low. But if you were to elevate that default, whether in your physical fitness or in the way that you operate your business, and so to bring it back to your team, is like you have everyone go through this 90-day launch program. At the end of the day, if your business took a dip for whatever reason, as an agent, they could default back to that same 90 days, plug themselves back into the exact same systems, processes, and expectations that are set during that, because that's their default. That's what they were conditioned and trained, you know, to go back to. And so now, like, the speed for which you can come back or bounce back from any kind of downfall or a little bit of a downturn increases much more drastically than somebody who then chases the next quick solution.
It's amazing that you said that, because I've never told you that before, but it is very common for people to run back through, hey, you know what, I need to get back on track again, and then go through that launch program again. So yeah, no, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
I think especially with that program, you know, if you're a team leader, like I think you know your biggest struggle is you want to get the right agents into production as fast as possible. And if you're an agent, you want to start making money as fast as possible. So like this is a very symbiotic relationship, and how we should have one of these structured. There should be accountability on both ends. But I always tell agents I talk to is I'm like, look, the best thing I can do for you is help you create something that nobody can take away from you. And once you learn how to do this on your own, not to say that I don't want to be in business with you, because I do, and we look at our agents as partners, like long-term life partners. But this is something that's now yours. Like you own it. You know how to do it. Like I've given you the best gift is like being able to go create on your own and be self-sufficient in the business, which a lot of teams are not structured to do that.
Yeah. No, I think that's really powerful. So I want to dive into the second thing that you suggested, which was to put yourself in more rooms, go to more events, plug into more opportunities to like learn from and be around other people in the industry. Yep. And I really want to dig into this a bit, because I think that it can quickly become the biggest downfall for a lot of people too, because just like you mentioned earlier, people get into that analysis paralysis. They're thinking that, oh, by simply going to all of these events and conferences and workshops, I'm going to like absorb that information and it's going to just instantly have a reflection in my business. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Sure. And so I think it's important that we talk about, you know, how to go to those kind of things with certain intentions. Yep. And it may be different for each person, because obviously there are different goals and objectives in real estate too. So, you know, your intention going into an event may be more focused at times on the networking you can do there, the certain person you can hopefully get some time in front of or get to connect with. Whereas in other cases, it's like, hey, I'm really struggling with my marketing, and I hope to hear from this person, and maybe somebody else who's going to give me some insight on how I can improve that piece of my business. And so I would love to hear from you, because I know you also attended quite a few of those events and continue to do so. What do you go into an event, like when you set an intention, whatever it may be, when going to something like that, how do you make sure that you get in and get out with exactly what you came there for, and hopefully more, but of course, you know, making sure you're not just blindly like, oh, here's another event I'm going to. Yeah.
Well, before I get into like the strategy on the event, I think I mean, it's not surprising that we would both like just kind of breeze over that part. It's because I think a lot of agents struggle to even get there. And like, I've actually seen this in real life, where an agent will have no problem spending $500 on a Gucci belt, but will hesitate at a freaking conference that costs $600, $700, $1,000. I'm like, I do not understand. Like, that belt you just bought went to zero, but you won't put $1,000 up to invest into your business on how you even bought that in the first place. Like, it just blows my mind. So number one is like truly like not being scared to invest in your education. But the reason why I think people are always nervous to do that, they think $1,000 sounds like a lot. Well, if I told you, hey, you spend $1,000, you're going to make an extra 30 or 40 or 50 this year, you'd throw $10,000 out the window to go to that event. But the problem is you don't have enough confidence in yourself that when you invest $1,000, you're going to go get an ROI, right? You wonder, is it worth it? Well, it's definitely not worth it if you go and don't implement anything and just get shit-faced at the bar. I mean, like, which hey, I've been there, right? Maybe
also
not.
Fun.
Yeah, also fun. But I've also learned, like, now we're going to get into the intention part, because as you get a little bit more advanced, like you are very strategic. It's not just to go have fun. Like a lot of, I used to see that a lot going to like, I went to this one KW family reunion event, and I saw a lot of agents that were from, I was actually looking into joining Keller Williams at the time, and merging our brokerage, and I saw a bunch of people from our hometown, and it was like a vacation. And I'm like, I don't want to like go to the strip club, or I don't want to like go out and go drink all night. Like I want to be on stage at some point talking. Like I'm not going to get there by doing all this other BS that's there. So yeah, when you get to the number one, invest in the event, like, and promise yourself you're going to take stuff away from it. Be there, be present, not saying don't have fun, don't have a drink, whatever, but like take notes and be serious about, I'm going to implement things that I learn here. And so I think the first step is understanding that, like, I used to go to events and go, oh shit, I gotta literally tear down my entire operation. Like, I'd watch something and go, yep, that's it, changing everything, firing everyone out. I never did that, but I would definitely think like I like, it's almost overwhelming. And so the fact of the matter is that usually you haven't been doing the wrong thing, you just haven't been doing the right thing long enough. And so what you want to do is calibrate just from the actual information that's there, is take notes on things that you think are going to be something you should implement. And then go do it. It doesn't have to be like this whole, I'm changing my entire strategy. That's kind of counterproductive. So go in and understand, like, what do I want to learn? What am I looking for? What do I want to take away from this? Go find it, implement it. And it could be like 2 things. Yeah. And that's worth the investment. Now, when you look at the event, you want to look at who are the speakers? Do I know anybody else going? Is there a VIP dinner, someone I want to speak with? I need to purchase. Like, you definitely want to look at it from the outsider's point of view. If you have a team, do you want to bring other agents with you? Like, that's one thing I try to do now as much as possible, is take somebody that's in my organization with me. Nobody ever really did that for me. I was always like me going, I'm by myself. And so I think the greatest gift you can give somebody else is like elevating their thought process and elevating their level of professionalism with events. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if that covered, like, I was kind of going all over the place, but events are such an interesting, because you can waste literally countless tens of thousands of dollars and time if you don't go with intention. I do think at some point you are not going for the content anymore. You're going for the contacts. Yes. And everyone has a switch you'll probably make at that point, or you start speaking at it. I mean, I know me and you both been on plenty of stages. You've spoken on more than I have, but at some point we're not even in the audience anymore, we're actually speaking, and it's just a whole different dynamic.
Yeah, I think one thing, if I could lend a piece of advice to people listening that are thinking about going to more events, I think one of the things that we see happen a lot is, let's say you're going to an event, it's 3 days. So of course you maybe got a travel day there, you are going to this event for a couple days, and so naturally you've taken some time off. And in a lot of cases, most people struggle to do that too. So then you're stepping out every couple minutes to take a call, to answer an email. You're not actually truly there and engaged. Yeah. And so I know that's much easier said than done, but so crucial that you actually set yourself up for success, because if you are going to be there and have to step out and take client calls every 2 seconds, respond to emails the whole time, have your computer open, doing all these other things, you are not going to be actually listening to that information. You would have been better off just staying home and continuing to work at the normal pace that you do. Yep. So I think that piece is really important, is make sure that if and when you go to these events, you're actually able to be as present as possible, especially during the times that matter most. There may be a session where you're like, oh yeah, this doesn't pertain to me that much. I'm going to step out and handle my calls and emails right now, or something along those lines. But the second thing is, because they've now taken some of that time unplugged from, their day-to-day life or business, when they come back, it's a catch-up game of like, oh, I have to catch up on all of these things, whether life-related or business-related. And so there was never the intentional scheduled time to actually implement the things that they learned. And so that was one of the biggest shifts for myself personally, and I've seen it be very helpful for other people, is when they go and attend an event, I don't want you to just schedule off the time that you're going to this event, but also block off an additional 2 days, whether that's during the weekend, whenever you can fit it in, but very close following the actual event, that you can actually within those, or 1 day or a couple hours, but it's got to be actually blocked on your calendar, that's your intentional time that you are going to take action on the things that you just took away from that event.
My strategy for that is I take the worst chicken scratch notes you'll never be able to read. I can read them, but I'll do that at the event, and then usually on the plane ride home, I bust open my laptop, I take those notes. I just did this coming back from Orlando, and I transfer them all to a Google Doc, and I kind of like, cut out the fat. I elaborate on ideas. Like, it's more of a thought process, and then actually build an action plan out. I'm like, okay, here are the to-dos. Here's when I need to talk about this, reach out to so-and-so. And that's like, those are momentum builders, but then you got to go execute on it. My favorite thing, especially if you're a team leader, my favorite thing to do is like report back to my admin team. Like, I remember they would be excited because they're like, oh yeah, like Ramon's out in Inman and he's like texting us like all these ideas, and they're excited for me to come back and be like, all right guys, I know you weren't there, but I'm gonna make you feel like you were, or at least I'm gonna give you all the good stuff. And we would mastermind about what I just learned and like bring them in on what it was that I was there for. And I still do like doing that. It's a little bit different now, but that's a part that I really enjoyed, is that after process, after the event.
Yeah. The debrief is just as important as being there.
Yep.
I love that. Okay. So now the third point that you shared was about having patience.
Yep.
And is interesting that you said that. Not something I typically see you having a lot of.
No, zero.
But
usually,
no, I have seen you be very patient. And with that, I almost want to argue that patience isn't the perfect word to actually explain that, because, well, I know that was your thing, but I think it's more like resilience. We were kind of talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
That it's because patience a lot of times is associated with like sitting back and waiting. And that's so not what you're talking about here. You're talking about have the patience to stay the course, to stay focused, the resilience and the like commitment to say no to certain things in order to stay focused on the things that you know are going to pay off, but they maybe didn't have that instant gratification, instant payoff. Yeah. So I would love if you could expand a little bit on, how, because I know this has happened for you too, that you felt challenged at times by other opportunities, other things that are pulling your attention, even within real estate and within what you're trying to pursue. There is always that shiny object of, should I look at a new brokerage? Should I entertain this conversation? Should we look at a new CRM, new lead gen? Like there's so many different things that are commanding your attention and control every single day. And so how do you, know what to say yes and no to and stay focused so that you can be patient with the result, but resilient with the action to get that?
Yeah, that is a loaded, I can do my best. And I do accept the change to resilient. Cause I do think patience does get that. Like, I'm going to sit back and just like chill and let things play out, which is not acceptable. Not good. I would say that, I don't know if this is just me, but I know that like on the disc profile, high Ds, like for me personally, I can literally see it with my own, in my head, I can see our multi-state operation integrated with insurance, mortgage, title, investment division, commercial division that bolted onto each one. Like I can see it in my head. So what happens is that when you see that future vision, like as a D, I think this is what happens with D style personalities, is you want to just run directly to it. Like if it's not about like, you just kind of like everything in between that is just collateral damage. And that's not good because you need people to do that. So I would say that knowing that, number one, understanding things take time, but like when you're really dialed into your business and you are like, I wake up, I do the reps, I know what's going on. I'm fluent with my own technology. I'm fluent with my own processes. I have real metrics on my business. The holes will present themselves very naturally. I think when and that's why I think there's such a big market to sell agents that are brand new. All these, you name it, they sell it to them. And it's because they don't know where the holes are at. So I'm just going to create a hole for you and convince you need to buy this. Yeah. Like, oh, don't worry, this CRM is going to change. It's like, if you weren't using your previous one like this, I promise you, if you don't use this one, it's not going to do anything either.
Yeah.
So understanding that like those things will present themselves. And I think that when you think about your business, revenue, in my opinion, will cure 99% of the problems. And once you have the revenue, it's pretty easy to go figure out the rest of it. And so number one is like never lose sight of sales. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that I've done in the past is like I have this grand, like big operation and big corporate vision, but you can't lose sight of like, we need like the basics. Like we need leads coming in. How are they processed? Who talks to them? How are we holding them accountable? Like, I think there's a big shift that we went through and we're going through right now, which is managing policy and not managing people. Because when you get to a certain level, like there's just no way you can keep account for 50 agents. I just can't do it. Right. Mm-hmm. So all those things are all steps gradually to get there. I mean, this is like 6 years of literally every day doing it. But I would say that, that's probably the one that to go back, then you can kind of point me back in the right direction because I went off track there. But about knowing your business inside and out. And when you know it that well, like those holes will naturally present themselves. Mm-hmm. And then you go find solutions. There's no silver bullet. There's no like perfect thing. Nothing's perfect. But there are really good partners and vendors and technology companies out there that do have specific problems they solve. And most of the time you'll start getting into the more specifics more than you'll get general. Like a CRM is a big problem. Like if that's a very big problem. But if you need, your lead generation system to pop into you have multiple lead generation systems and now you need them to all go into your database. This is an API, right? You might have never learned about that, but there's specific companies that solve that one need to bridge that gap in your business. And so identifying like, you don't need the API before you can use the CRM the right way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like one comes before the other.
Okay, so what I'm hearing as an answer to the question was that basically it's most important to focus on the key piece, which is bringing more revenue into your business, making that the forefront of your focus, and then not searching for the holes, just allowing them to present themselves as you grow it and scale, which I think is very true. A lot of times, either we are forced into thinking a certain way that we have, like you said, a hole and then we need to fix it, or we are seeking those too often, when in reality, there is typically one major issue with most people's business, and that's like lack of cash flow.
Yeah. It's looking for external solutions for internal problems. That's we've all done it at some point, but I think that, when you take a hard look, and I had to do this in 2016 when I was pretty much broke and had no money and I was like needed a loan from my dad. I was like, all right, give yourself a real grade here on like, how hard are you really trying, knowing how capable you are, knowing the amount of work you're willing to put in, give yourself a real grade. And if your grade is below a A-, you don't need to be buying or leveraging yourself financially to continue to grow your business with like tech, lead generation, all this other stuff. Like it just doesn't make sense. It's not a long-term sustainable play.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. Okay, well, I do want to know, because I have an answer to this myself, and so I'm curious to know how similar or different yours may be. What do you think is the most important skill, characteristic, or trait of a successful agent?
Wow, that's a good question. Do you want to go first?
Well, no, only because you're gonna just take mine.
No, I mean I can't, like, if this is recorded, I can't take. It's gonna be clear if I can only steal it from like one conversation to the next.
All right, fair. So everyone tune in tomorrow to Ramon's live where he's going to take this concept. But no, I think, and I believe we've even talked about this a little bit in the past, is that the most important trait, characteristic, or skill is going to be based around how personable and confident you are and how you like orchestrate your people skills.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that's not a super easy thing to teach people. It is definitely something you can improve, but I think it somewhat tends to be one of those things that you kind of have or don't have to begin with, but you can always improve those things. And there's an element of it that'll come with the technical side. So the confidence is going to continue to grow as you have more conversations about real estate, as you make more cold calls, as you have more deals under your belt. The confidence there will build. It's the same thing walking into a gym for the first time. If you've never gone in there, you're not going to have all the confidence in the world to walk around and find the machines and figure out how to use them. Same thing in real estate. You struggle with that, but the personable aspect and being the person that can go in, have a conversation, understand how to actually listen and respond to someone rather than just trying to like follow your script that you were told you should say, that kind of stuff is going to set you far beyond anyone else in your industry, because that's what keeps you able to like pivot. And naturally, we have to make a million changes and adjustments every single day, whether it's in a conversation, even in this episode right now, your responses change what I then ask you after that. And so being able to kind of like turn on a dime with that is super important, and definitely a skill to be practiced, but it's not as easy as just saying, oh, I'm going to read scripts, or I'm going to practice my objection handling or something like that, because it kind of has to evolve over time, and it's going to happen as you grow as a human too.
And there is some trial by fire involved in that too. Like, and so mine would be situational awareness and ability to build rapport. And I think that those go hand in hand with what you're saying. I mean, whether it's, you get on the phone with somebody and they're clearly upset, like this isn't the time to shove your 5-minute pitch down their throat, right? This is the time to go is to level with them, right? Show some emotional intelligence about the situation. And that translates to, if you're a team leader, to your agents, if you're an agent on a team, if you're talking to a for sale by owner on the phone, if you're talking to somebody and you're at the listing appointment in their home, like you're going to be presented with so many situations, and knowing like the best way, like learning how to navigate and pivot through those and understanding like the big picture, not just what you're there for, is key. And then building rapport. I mean, like I'm a big believer that people do business with people they like. Like I'd go with the person who's less qualified because I like them more.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same for real estate. So your ability to find commonality, strike conversation, remember key details about people that make them feel special and like you care. I would almost argue that you can almost do anything when you have those skill sets.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that falls right into the, sales skills and whatnot. But yeah, ability to build rapport and then situational awareness.
Okay. Those are good. That was a great answer. So we're kind of coming to the close of this episode, and I'm going to throw a curveball at you here. So I need to know that you're ready for this. Are you ready to handle it? Okay. I want you to tell the people.
Tell the world.
Tell the world what you see happening in 2023 for yourself and, of course, for Rock.
Okay, wow. I thought you were going to say real estate industry. I was like, oh my God.
I don't want to open up that can of worms right now.
I was like, I actually don't know. And frankly, I don't care, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's something that to be said for all this economic, like, whatever. Like, at first, honestly, I'm always like this. I get, like, a little wound up in it. And then I remember, oh, yeah, I can't control any of that. So why am I worried about it? So good market, bad market, Rock's going to thrive. We're going to do okay. I would say for us, I mean, our goal is to, if we could do it next year, it'd be awesome. But our one of our main objectives right now is to go through. We went through all of our agent business planning, and one of the main objectives right now is to make sure we help every agent achieve what they set out to net profit and earn in 2023. If we do that effectively, our team goals will hit the marks we need to hit. And so, yeah, that's number one. I mean, that's most important because I feel like a lot of times in teams, at least, you kind of get caught up in like, I want to get on stage and on a podcast and talk about how many units and how many millions of dollars of GCI we brought in. But that doesn't do anything unless the agents are succeeding with you. So number one, making sure they get they earn what they want to earn and they're living a life that we can help them design, that they're very, very more than happy to be living. That'd be number one. Number two, I would say continuing to go deep in each market. I mean, I think that we're in 3 markets now, Denver, Phoenix, Albuquerque, and continuing to build out our sales teams there and just finding good leaders. I mean, I think we have great ones, but I could always use more. Just people that want to give back more, and have a good symbiotic relationship of give and take in our company. And I mean, I don't really have like for Rock, I mean, I have like metrics and stuff, but I think
that was a great vision cast. And honestly too, that first piece, and don't get a big head over there, but it does speak a lot to your leadership skills of understanding that like, in order for me to reach my goals, the more people I help reach their goals will get me there faster
100%.
Rather than just trudging directly towards what you want. And I think that obviously I see that put into practice in the way that you lead your team and every agent that you interact with. But I think it's important for other people to take that into their own practice. Like whether you're an individual agent, whether it's within your own household, the relationships that you hold, it's always important to understand. And I was a big B&I girl, so their phrase of giver's gain, I always loved that.
Love that one.
Love throwing that out.
Actually a core value of ours, giver's gain.
But it is so true. Givers do gain. If you are seeking more like opportunities to help solve problems for other people, provide value to other people, as a result of that, you're going to continue to receive and be highly rewarded. You're going to have favor on your life, and you're going to continue to feel how good it feels, to not only help other people succeed and thrive, but then also, of course, has how that like relates back to accomplishing your goals. So I love those. And as we round this out, I want you to leave the people with your best golden nugget just off the top of your noggin.
Oh, man.
No pressure. Hopefully not one that I've said, but
best golden
anything
nugget
that you want to leave. Well, think about who might be listening to it. Think about it as, an agent who potentially is nervous about what's to come in their future. Maybe they have not yet seen the success that they're looking for, or even if they have, of course, they're looking to scale it up. So maybe somebody listening like that, what would you give them as just your biggest piece of advice and strategy or whatever you want to say?
Oh man. Yeah, it's not going to be like a polished quote.
That's okay.
So is that
Yeah,
okay? It can be just
Of course.
off the
I think whatever's off the cuff, it's on your heart to share. It's going to be valuable for people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would say so describing some of the situations that somebody could be in. I remember looking at other agents in my market, and I remember looking at their production and going, I don't think I can actually sell 50, 75 homes. Like, that sounds like too much. Like, I was like blown away. I remember scrolling through their MLS and like on their listings and seeing all the like the orange pendings, and I was just like, and all the blue closed, and just in awe. I remember when I got my first, we called it a scroller, like where our MLS sheet was big enough where it scrolled.
First scroller.
And I was funny because I would show my dad. I'm like, Dad, look, I got a scroller. Like, there's enough. I think the number was 14 or 15 on the normal standard view MLS. This is like nerding out right now, but it was like 14, 15 line items. And then it was like, hey, check it out. Like, our total, everything we have is a scroller now. Then it was like, hey, check it out. Just our listings are a scroller. Then it was like, hey, check it out. Just our pendings are a scroller. And so like, that was really exciting to watch that happen. But then I remember when I think I sold like almost 100 homes in my second year, and you have these like self-limiting beliefs, but they're just not like, you got to remove that stuff. Like, if you care about people and you're willing to put in the time to build your business, and I say care about people, care about the people you're servicing, word gets out real quick. I mean, It's not like, there's not a lot of people out there, in my opinion, that are punctual, do what they say they're going to do, hardworking, and, do the right thing for people, regardless of the economic outcome for them.
Yeah.
And if you're that person, people want to tell other people about you. And so it takes time, but just know that like, there's really no limit on what you can do. It's like a license to kill them. It's not like the best saying, but it's like a license to kill. You can do whatever you want with this real estate license. And so just know that whatever you're thinking about doing, you can do it. And there's no limits. Every person that has had any success started off the same way you did. And, most of the time, the difference is they've just committed more of their, whether it's life, energy, resources, and time to what they want. And you can do the exact same thing. And the last thing I'll say is that supporting, which I had to learn this myself. It's kind of weird again that I'm even saying this, is that supporting other people's success doesn't take away from your own. I was very like cultish at first. Like, if you're not, and I still to this day, like, I care about my agents more than all, like, it's very hard for me to help other, like I do it, but it's just my people are my people. Right. And so before I'd be if you're not with us, I basically forgot your name. Right. And that's not the right way to be. And that, helping other people in the industry, even though it sounds like, why would I start like helping other people? You'd be surprised how things circle back, things evolve, people get into other positions that can help you in the future. And so just being a team player of the industry from day one will, long term, if you're serious about your career in real estate, will serve you 10 times more than the energy you put into it. I can guarantee that.
All right, those were some really good ones. That was awesome. I think that was 2 really great golden nuggets to end with. And I love that you brought up limiting beliefs. That is definitely something we want to unpack in a future episode, because I think it's probably one of the things that is most limiting for everyone. Like, everyone has that. Everyone faces it, whether it's glaring and in your face or not. We all face it. We all go through seasons, especially where it shows itself more than others. So
that's right.
I love that you brought that up. And that will conclude our episode. I hope that you guys all enjoyed this interview of Ramón. Got to know him a little bit more, dive a little bit deeper into his story and kind of his philosophy on, why he does what he does. Obviously, you can see the genius that exists there, and really why he has been so successful at what he's doing, just because it really comes from a true, authentic place. And there's a lot of passion behind everything that you do. So I'm like lucky enough to get to see it and witness it every day. And I hope that our listeners got a little taste of that here today too. And we'll see you guys and talk to you guys on the next episode.
That was sweet. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get updates as new episodes become available. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. It is how new people find the show. Until next time, friends.